Pembroke is focused entirely on small to medium-sized public growth companies in Canada and the United States. It manages money for corporate pension plans, mutual funds, and wealthy individuals. The assets are invested in a family of mutual funds, pooled funds, and segregated pension funds. Balancing a portfolio is both an art and a gamble.
Typically, we start very small. We'll typically put no more than 1%, maybe a little less than that, of the portfolio in a new name.
Of your holdings or their value?
Of our holdings. Typically, it'll be a bigger chunk of the company.
How far into the company will you go?
The limit is no more than 15% of what we call the market float, which is stock that is available to trade on an exchange or publicly, as opposed, so we would exclude from that any of the insider holdings. Very often these companies are, they may be majority owned by the people running the businesses.
And then they don't let it go so it doesn't trade.
Doesn't go that quickly. So typically we will never own more than 15%, because if you do, then when the mistakes are made and you try to get out, if you own more than that, it's very, very difficult indeed to achieve that. It takes forever to get out.
But the upside isn't as high either.
That is correct. That is correct. Ideally, if you had perfect vision, you would invest in only one company at the right time. But we're not that smart, so we diversify. And we found that to be a useful thing in the past.
So you start small, but you're ready to go higher if...
Ideally, if it works perfectly, you put 1% in at the beginning, maybe 6 months to a year later, you'll build that up to 2%. Hopefully the stock will have moved up over that period of time because people are beginning to recognize it, and then let it grow to a 3, 4, 5, 6, even 7% holding in the portfolio. 7's the top, no matter how good it is and how excited we are about it. At 7%, we're going to cut it back because we just think that that's too much exposure to any one holding.
I hope we do well 6 out of 10 times. I mean, that would be a good number. In fact, maybe it's higher in certain cycles and maybe a little bit lower in other cycles. But on average, 6 out of 10 times probably is a good number to be successful at.
Pembroke favors a team approach to making investment choices. 6 partners share their knowledge and experience with each other. 2 of the founders continue to work alongside a team that has been with Pembroke for an average of over 15 years. The partnership is supported in turn by the efforts of 3 analysts. Expansion of the company was never a goal in itself.
Well, moderately. We had to, as time went on, expand it because we were bringing in younger people, and it was important from their point of view that they could see that this was a company that had a stable base and wasn't just dependent upon, 1 or 2 groups. That was too big a risk to take. And so, as we wanted to, with bringing more people along, we had to have a bigger asset base. So we had what I would call a selective marketing approach, but it was not done with 21 guns blazing away.
Yeah, I think they stick to their knitting, what they've always done. They expand at a reasonable rate into a certain number of other things. They do things that are good that we don't do, like they may go into commodities, which Taylor is particularly good at, oil and mines and things, but they're less mining companies now. So they're sticking to their knitting, they're expanding a bit from it, but always the same base. You're not going to find a Pembroke fund loaded with Royal Bank and all the big banks or the big oil companies. You will find some smaller oil companies or maybe some smaller banks. But it's a question of staying with their knitting and doing what they're accustomed to do. And that's sort of unique that people do that.
I've been a client of GBC and a friend of theirs for many, many years. If I try to distill it, I think it is that they don't think of themselves as being masters of the universe. They're not Gordon Geckos with the red suspenders on a pas les bretelles. They are serious people. They are people of enormous integrity. And while they have done very well financially, that's been a byproduct. They have done well for their clients, and because they've done well for their clients, they have done well themselves. Whereas generally speaking in that industry, quite apart from the principles, you eat what you kill, basically making money is the principal objective. That's why most people go into the money business. And in the case of Ian and Scott and the new generation, the values are very, very different. And within the organization, the values are very different. It's a very strong team, which is why it's worked exceedingly well. And it's why I suspect most of their clients are exceedingly loyal. Good times, less good times.